Hi, it's Captain Mike here with you again on a video about the differences between cold processed soap and melt and pour soap or glycerin soap. The main differences are with cold process or homemade soap, you have to make it just like you would bake a cake. You need ingredients, you have to combine them, and then you have to pour them into a mold and wait for them to turn into soap. And of course, for cold process, you need some sort of oil, shortening, lard, and whatever other kind of oils and lards that you want to get into it to make a nice soap. You'll need sodium hydroxide, and you'll need water, and those are the only ingredients you need other than colors and fragrance and that kind of stuff. But you have to have these. You mix them all up in a bowl, and of course you mix your sodium hydroxide powder into the water, always into the water, not the water into this, and you make your lye solution, and then you mix it all up in a bowl and you wait for it to turn to soap. With melt and pour, it comes already soap, and it comes in all flavors with all kinds of additives in it. This here is, I think it's got goat's milk in it already put in it and all that kind of stuff. It comes in blocks like this. It's rather soft. When I say soft, I mean, you know, you can see it's that consistency right there. It doesn't get as hard as homemade soap, cold processed soap, but you can do a lot of artistic things with it. This is some shaving shampoo soap. I bought a bunch of shaving shampoo from somebody that had it. I just use it for to make regular soap bars. I like the color, and then you can add to it, but it comes that way. And then this is some right here that I had already added color to and poured it back in. It's all the same. You just, you know, it's melt and pour glycerin soap. You just get it with what you want in it or what you don't want in it, and you add what you want, that sort of thing. It melts very easy in a microwave. All you need is a mixing bowl, and give you an idea of how this stuff cuts up. See, this is a cold processed soap would never cut that easy. That's the way that cuts, and that's about as hard as it gets. Now, the plus to this is you can mold it in an infinite number of molds. You can put it in these great big molds like this. You could also use this one probably for cold process too, but I never have. But you can mold it into blocks like that, and it will make, you know, loaves. You can put it into these really neat silicone molds. Got these from Walmart. Makes these little roses. Works great. You know, you can just buy tons and tons and tons of plastic molds. And there's an endless number of molds that you can get online to use. The plastic ones, I just showed you one a second ago, and then these are all plastic. They have a limited life. They get old and fragile and they'll crack and break, but for what they are, they're great. I prefer the silicone mold whenever you can get one that suits you. They last literally forever. Soap always pops out of them just fine. This one's a rose one I mentioned before, come from Walmart. As you see, I've made a pour already. This is one of the things that you can do with the melt and pour soap. I've already poured one color in these molds, and then I'll pour another color on top. And it's like this one here is this one here. This one makes a great two-tone mold for Guess soaps. You get the one color, and then you get your second color, and you just wait till the first color kind of congeals a little bit so it won't mess up, and you pour it in like that, and you let it sit. And it's the same with these right here. I got that little bit of pink in there, which was just a little that I had left over, and of course we all love green roses, so I'll pour that in there. when working with this soap, you have to keep it hot. See how it's kind of doing this. When it films over, you've got to do what you got to do to it. It develops bubbles pretty bad, so you have to kind of work that. But it's creative. Like I said, the molds are endless. These type molds right here are called clamshell. They're intended to be one-use molds, although you can use them many times. They come complete with a little lid that pops on top. So you pour your soap in here. When it hardens, you pop your top on it, and it hangs. It's got a little hanger, and you can hang it. And this, you think that's the greatest thing since sliced white bread, and it is. But just like sliced white bread has its drawbacks, this does too. You live in a hot climate, you got these things hanging outside in the direct sun, it gets up about 65, 70 degrees, this stuff starts to melt and it'll run out. It will cause you the biggest, nastiest mess you've ever seen in your display. You have to be aware of that. This stuff will remelt in the sunlight and it'll go everywhere. The other thing that I don't like about melt and pour soap is that it, let me put this back in the microwave for a second. Is very soft. If you drop it or leave it in the bath water, it will just turn to mush, whereas cold process soap doesn't. But there again, this is an artsy kind of thing. It has its uses. It's the great thing about it, the plus is that it comes already made soap. You don't have to fool with anything. You don't have to fool with lye or any kind of harsh chemicals. And you can just make some really great, beautiful soaps. But just remember that it has its drawbacks. And you have to remember that. So we're going to pour one of these little ladies here. Well, we're not going to pour one of these ladies because you have to pour this whole block right here. But we'll pour a crayfish though. Because at the end of this video, I want to show you what these things are going to look like. So I'll go ahead and pour this green soap out right here on top of my pink crawfish. And of course this is soap, so when you go to clean it up, you just wash it out. It's not a big deal. Scrape it out, save the scrapings, and wash it. Now, to recap, the pluses of melt and pour soap is it's easy to work with. You just need a microwave or a little, you can even heat it up on the stove, but you can turn it into liquid without mixing anything. Then you put your color in, your fragrance in. You can use any kind of a mold you want to use, and you pop it out, it's ready to go. Cold process, on the other hand, which is my favorite, this is what I use, what I make more of now. In fact, I don't make any of this anymore at all. You have to mix it just like mixing a cake. You have to have some sort of shortening, lard, something like that, and you have to add palm kernel oil, coconut oil, cocoa butter, on and on and on. You have to have all that stuff. You have to have your recipe, and you have to have sodium hydroxide and some water, and you mix it all up and put it into a mold. Now, I use these, of course, and I've showed you how to make one of these, but it's tough to pour cold processed soap into these kind of molds. You have to be very aware when you're mixing cold processed soap about your lye water solution and the type of fragrance that you use, because if you don't, it'll set up before you can get it in these molds and it won't fill the cavities properly. You have to use stuff that allows the cold processed soaps batter, if you will, to remain liquid long enough to pour. It can be done, but it's difficult to do. So that being said, when these things dry, we'll come back, I'll unmold them, I'll show you what they look like, and we'll go from there. Okay, we're back with the melt and pour versus the cold processed soap. And we have unmolded the melt and pour. Earlier I did showed you how to do the two-tone melt and pour soap. Also the little thing there, the little lobster, and then just for grins and giggles. That's of course not very good for soap, but it shows what you can do with it. You can pour all kinds of little small things, big things, whatever. And now, to recap, and this is a great time to point out one of the two major problems with melt and pour soap. This soap right now is very slick. It's hard to pick up. It went from extremely cold here in Georgia to up around 65 degrees this morning. It's been damp and rainy for the last couple of days. This soap attracts moisture like a magnet. So I've asked several of my soaping friends how they overcome that. No answer. You can do some research and find out how. I don't know of an additive, I don't know of what. A room dehumidifier might work great for storing your soap, but on days like today, it gets really slick. It's difficult to pick up. Makes it no less pretty, but that's an issue, as is the issue with the heat. You cannot display this, probably I would say above 75, 80 degrees. It'll start to get soft on you, and by the time it gets around 90, it's going to start melting. And those are the minuses on the melt and pour. The pluses is you can do anything you want to do. You can have all kinds of fun with them, and it requires very little safety equipment, no caustic chemicals whatsoever. However, the cold process soap is dry, hard, and it's not affected by the weather. However, it's very difficult to put into a mold like this, especially two-tone. You have to be very careful with how the consistency of the soap batter. It needs to be extremely thin and stay extremely thin for a while you work with it. So that's it. That's my comparison of melt and pour glycerin soap to homemade cold process. But you know, it's a win-win situation. You don't have to make a choice. Do them both and have fun. This is Captain Mike. Appreciate you watching my video. Thank you.